Hey everybody, Mandy Ray of Ecstatic Astrology here for the full moon in Sagittarius report, which is a day late. Apologies, I'm traveling. I'm in Avon, Colorado. I decided to have this as my background, not the typical background you see me in front of, but here I am. It's a ski resort in the off season, which is what I prefer. I don't really like to ski. I broke my tailbone one time snowboarding, and that was it for me. I was done. So I'm a hiker, like to hike. By the way, tailbone breakage pain is really not fun. And I have a funny story if you ever see me about that. Hilarious. Anyhow, I'm here visiting with family and enjoying the weather, which is not super hot here, which there's a heat wave going on in a lot of the country. So I'm grateful to be in a place where it is windy and really wonderful. So, all of my thanks to the universe for this. This is awesome. And, Sagittarius rules travel. So, of course, me with the Sagittarius stellium, meaning a lot of planets in Sag, find myself traveling. Here I am. But I wanted to talk about this full moon in Sagittarius, even though it happened yesterday. It doesn't really matter because we're still in the midst of it. I mean, it's a culmination, but it takes a minute for that moon to not be full, right? So here we are at this almost fully illuminated moon. Moon's in Capricorn today, Wednesday, June 15th, while I am recording this. But the full moon in Sag, which means the sun's in Gemini at 23 degrees, the moon was in Sagittarius at 23 degrees, was in a square aspect to the planet Neptune. And that's in Pisces. So Sagittarius is optimism, it's philosophy, it's truth. It is travel, higher education. It's I know what I know. I want to go after it. I'm hopeful. I'm a lot. It's a lot. Like that's my favorite word for Sagittarius, right? It's so much. It's expansive. It's ruled by Jupiter. The square to Neptune can mean disillusionment. So on one hand, we're sure of our path and we're excited and we're hopeful, we're optimistic, but there's something tugging at us, a lack of clarity in some area, maybe some disillusionment, like this is what life is. And that could be difficult. Neptune also rules escapism. And so this full moon could have had people being wild, just trying to get away from it all. That's probably the toughest part of this full moon in Sag was the square to Neptune. It can kind of cloud judgment. Now, Sagittarius is ruled by Jupiter. Jupiter's in Aries, which is active. It's going for it. So a full moon in Sag ruled by Jupiter and Aries is like, we're just going to move ahead and we're going to take action and we are going to pursue our desires. But there is that question of, is this the right thing to do? And I do believe the way to deal with that is the fortunate aspect of the full moon to Saturn. Saturn is in Aquarius and it's making a good opportunistic sextile to the full moon in Sag and a trine to the sun in Gemini during this full moon. And Saturn is foundational, it's mastery. In Aquarius, this is think of the bigger picture. Think of your goals. Think of your place in society, your responsibility to the whole. That is Saturn in Aquarius. And so in some ways, we had a grounding mechanism during this full moon, which also Saturn is retrograde. Let me just make that note because a retrograde is a restructuring, a revisitation of the maybe goals we've set for ourselves, maybe the way we've plugged into groups of people, society. So we've been sort of researching that area of our life. How do we structure our reality? So this full moon could have been like, maybe I'm going to turn around, tweak a few things in regards to my structure in order to support what I'm doing with Jupiter and Aries, this moving forward. But Neptune, Neptune's a little cloudy. So the moon has moved by now and it's in Capricorn. And let me just very quickly go through the full moon in Sag by rising sign. I think I have to use my phone since I'm in a different situation than I normally am. So, whatever. everyone uses the phone, right? Okay, so Aries rising, this full moon would have been in your 9th house, which is a lot like what Sagittarius is anyway. It's adventure, it's your worldview. Neptune's in your 12th, which is spirituality. And so for you, this is real existential. What do I believe? What is my specific orientation to reality? So I'm trying to pull this back up. Forgive me. Saturn would be in your, that's right, because Neptune's in your 12th, Saturn's going to be in your 11th. So this really is about friend groups for you. Maybe you're leaning on that. Maybe you're leaning on your goals, and that is how you're structuring things by looking at the bigger picture. Where do I want to be in a few years? That's a good question. Do you know that? That is exactly what this full moon is asking you to think about. That's how you're going to figure out where you're at, what you're after. Let's see here. Sure would be nice if my phone would cooperate. It's just not. There we go. Anything else here? Yeah, Jupiter and Aries for Aries risings is in your 1st house of identity and self. And so that's where you're sort of forging ahead and pursuing desires, maybe to be seen. I would say don't let that existential question of maybe self-doubt or escaping to isolation be something that keeps you from those larger plans being seen. That's for Aries rising. All right, Taurus rising. This would have been in your 8th house, right? Correct. Now, the 8th house is about how you share yourself with others. So this is extremely about groups, friend groups around you, because Neptune is in your 11th house of goals and networking and large groups of people. So although you may want to team up with someone, there could be a distrust or a confusion in the people that you surround yourself with. Saturn is in your 10th house of career and public reputation. And so you're working towards this higher sense of who you are, how you want to be seen. Think awards, accolades, mastery. You want to be seen as a master. Jupiter in Aries is in your 12th house of spirituality, which is ruling this full moon. So there is this greater sense of I'm doing this for a reason, even though if I don't know it's for a reason, it's for this kind of spiritual, mystical, inspirational reason. I wouldn't expect you to be able to put your finger on that because the 12th house is very abstract. I would say during this time, really checking in with your intuition. If you're planning on joining up with someone, teaming up with someone, including in business partnerships, maybe this has to do with a work relationship as well. If your intuition's saying no, probably not the time to do it, okay? Or probably not the person to do it with. But all in all, I think this is about how you invest your time in others and how others invest their time in you. And it could be also money, because the 8th house does have money implications, partnership implications. But I do feel like there's a partnership coming in, maybe through career or in order to further career. It's just a matter of, if for instance, they're not in the group that you typically associate with, that might be a good thing, right? So something around the groups that you surround yourself with is maybe causing problems, confusion, lack of direction, lack of clarity, even disillusionment. Like, I really don't like these people. I want to get away. It's about forming new partnerships and being seen as the master that you are in a public career type setting. Okay, for Gemini rising, this full moon is in your 7th house. This is relationship based. And it is both romantic and friendship. 7th house can even do with clients, right? So Saturn is in your 9th house of higher education, teaching, adventure. There may be people that you are teaching that There may even be a mentor coming into your life. Now, Neptune is in your 10th house of career and like legacy. I think that's a good 10th house word. And there is maybe some lack of clarity there. The answer is going to be in either finding a mentor, learning, expanding your knowledge base through classes, through traveling, through finding someone that you can apprentice with, exploring philosophical concepts. It's about learning more. That's where you're doing your work. And then relationships is where this full moon is really lighting up. Now, the thing about Jupiter, which is what's ruling this full moon, is it's in your 11th house of networking and goals. And so that being said, I feel like there is a lot of push forward for you, but there's more for you to learn. It's not that you shouldn't go network and shouldn't pursue your goals, but there's work to be done in this area of your worldview and what you need to know, finding your own truth, maybe being seen for who you are as a unique individual rather than pulling from someone else, rather than, and that's not to say the mentor is not the right way to go, but it's like, that's a specific relationship that you need to have. It's about finding your center. You may need a mentor to do that, but there's a lot of energy in like, oh, where do I go? What do I latch on to for Gemini risings? I think the answer is finding your own truth, finding what you believe, and that could be through education or a mentor. Okay. Cancer rising. Oh, don't I know? Because I'm a Cancer rising. This full moon's in your 6th house of health, routine, everyday life. And, you know, in regards to the 6th house, I really like to say ritual is a big word for that. So putting intention into everything you do. Saturn is in your 8th house of partnership. So there is something strong, maybe some work going on in investments, maybe debts that you have, but I think that there is a partner here that you can count on and that you work well with, that's going good. But also how you share your time, like that, there's work there, how you share yourself. That's the 8th house, maybe fears, maybe letting people take more than they should, or relying on people for things that you could be creating for yourself. Okay. Neptune is in your 9th house. Neptune's where you're experiencing the disillusionment, maybe is causing a little lack of clarity. And this is in travel, what you believe, your philosophy, your worldview. That can be a little confusing. It's like, I don't know what I believe. I don't know. I just, I kind of want to get back to my routine. That's how this may feel. It kind of does for me, right? I'm actually experiencing this very literally. Neptune's in my 9th house of travel, and it's causing a little bit of disillusionment because I'm like, whoa, I'm not at home for a lot of time. And where's my ritual? Where's my routine? So there is that rub there. But you know what my strongest, I would say, point in this process is my partnership. And that's an 8th house concept. And so that's where Saturn is for Cancer rising, is your 8th house, the investments you've made, the bonds you form. Now, Jupiter in Aries is in your 10th house of career, and there's a lot of get up and go there. Okay. That may be hard to do with Neptune in your 9th. Okay. I want to get up and go, but where am I supposed to point my arrow? Right. I don't think that you're supposed to pause or anything. It's more about doing it every day. Doing it every day. That's the 6th house. Also paying attention to your body, your health. Okay, so for Leo risings, full moon's in your 5th house of creativity. Wait, right? Yeah. Creativity, children, inner child. The 5th house has a lot to do with joy. And so you may be experiencing that somehow, or a burst of creativity. Neptune, however, is in your 8th house, which is how you share yourself with people. So you may feel like whatever you create, someone's trying to take it from you, something like that. That could be the case. It could be that there are fears in sharing what you create or sharing your joy, your inner child with someone close. Could be a little disillusionment around close partnerships and investments. Saturn, though, is in your 7th house of relationships. And I think that there's work to be done there, maybe new people to meet, maybe new clients to associate with. You're learning a lot in the 7th house, but it's helpful. It's helpful to learn about people, especially with Neptune causing disillusionment. And okay, now that I've met the person, do I join up with them? So you see how this goes. 7th house, relationships, how I meet people, my friendships, my romantic partners. But the 8th house is where you make it, legal. You sign a contract, or you're going to be their roommate, or you're going to be their business partner, or a marriage certificate. That's the 8th house in traditional astrology. And I really like the way that works. So it's like, yeah, I'm still working out who I want in my life and who I want to share my joy with, but it's good work because I'm not so sure about signing that contract yet. I'm going to tell you this, if it doesn't bring you joy, it's a no-go. Okay. Jupiter is in your 9th house of philosophy, higher education, and travel. And that's where you're putting a lot of energy. Okay. Like maybe seeing the truth in something, maybe your own desires are really starting to become clear to you. And that is a good thing. So there's a lot of movement there, and there will be. The summer's full of that for everyone, but especially for Leo risings. Just don't forget to be focused on your joy, and don't let another person take that from you. Okay. Virgo risings. The full moon is in your 4th house of home and family. So a lot of focus there, maybe too much, because a Sagittarius full moon is a lot. Okay. Neptune's in your 7th house of relationships. And so there could be a lack of clarity there. And Neptune isn't all bad. Neptune can also be very spiritual. But with a square, it's like there's something that's not jiving between home and family and a relationship in your life. It's just uncomfortable, maybe the mixture of the two. Saturn, though, is in your 6th house of health and ritual, routine. And that really is what grounds you right now. But you're also maybe rediscovering what you want that to be. Jupiter is in your 8th house of investments. Could bring up some need to take action on making something more official in your life, like your desires to grow your own wealth, grow your own sense of security, dive really deep into who you are. That's what Jupiter is bringing up for you. It's a lot there. The 8th house can bring up fears. It can be about loss. I don't want to, make anyone with Jupiter in their 8th like, loss. But it is something you may contend with during a full moon in Sagittarius. But also, where do I invest my time? And it's a little bit like, who do I choose? Like, do I choose my family? Do I choose my relationship? It's very, could be a little uncomfortable here. But I think ultimately the power is feeling at home because of your routine. Like, as long as you can do it the way you want to do it, things are good during this full moon in Sagittarius. Okay. And watch your health. I think that's a good thing for Virgos right now with Saturn in Aquarius. Okay. So Libra rising. This full moon is in your 3rd house of short trips, communication, decision making. So there may be lots of information. Your brain's really active, right? You're moving a lot. The place that is possibly a little disillusionment, escapism is your routine and your health. So I would definitely try to balance those two. Like, if you're moving a lot, doing a lot of frenetic things like moving around a lot, communicating a lot, being very social, doing a lot of community work, that's a 3rd house thing. Neptune in your sixth is like, also make sure you're paying attention to your health, because that could be causing some problems. But Saturn is in your fifth house of creativity. So don't forget to put in the work there, because that is a huge boon to you right now. What is your creative goals? That is what is a grounding factor. And also working towards your joy, making sure that inner child is respected. That's a Saturn in the fifth house thing. All of these things are true. I realize I'm giving you guys a whole lot, but there's a lot going on. So Jupiter in Aries is in your seventh house of relationships. And so there may be a lot of new friendships. It could even be romantic partnerships that are very active for you right now, especially during this full moon. I hope that this has helped you make a decision, though. I really like to think of the third house as the place to make decisions. Okay, Scorpio risings. This full moon is in your second house of finances, values. What is it you really value in life? Is it money? Is it time? Is it travel? What is it? And you're really exploring your truth there. Neptune's in your fifth house of children, inner child, romantic partners, joy. And that may be, so I feel like this could be stressful for Scorpio rising. Saturn's in your fourth house of home and family. So that is a place that you put in a lot of work and you're benefiting right now. But it may be hard, even though that there are good things happening, to feel happy about it with Neptune in your fifth. Just remember what you place your value in. Jupiter's in your sixth house of health and routine. And you are putting a lot of focus on that, especially this summer and then next year. And you're finding out what your truth is about your daily life. How do you want it to look every day? This full moon in Sag is really focused on that. Okay, so for Sagittarius risings, this is in your first house of self identity. And I love this because Saturn's in your third house of how you think, how you communicate. You've put in a lot of work there to structure that. Short trips even. And there's a lot of foundational feeling in this, like, I trust myself, I've researched, I've done all the work I need to do to organize. But Neptune is in your fourth house of home and family. And so there may be a little, I want to be me. I want to be the traveler, the troubadour, which is a Sagittarius rising thing. But something in my home and family area feels unclear, or we're still figuring that out. Okay. So you may have, I don't know, I'm tuning into the fact that that could be a little bit of a unsure, like, question mark. Like, what am I going to do with my home? Where am I going to live? How am I going to structure this in the future? Or maybe it's just that you have responsibilities there that you need to take care of in this full moon while you're feeling yourself and doing all the good, fun things, especially with Jupiter in your fifth house of joy and fun and inner child. And romance, and it's like a very romantic full moon. Maybe there's something about roots pulling you, maybe ancestry, family, that you can't quite make jive with the whole fun of the current moment. So I would definitely say it's about, I think definitely just letting go and having fun right now. Home is maybe who for you right now, not necessarily where. Okay. Capricorn rising. This full moon is in your 12th house. The 12th house is so abstract. It's like dreams and spirituality. So it could feel like very magical with this full moon. I don't know why I'm saying like so much. Sorry about that. But Neptune, let me make sure I got this right, because I need Neptune here. We got Cap. Yeah. 1, 2, 3. It's in your third house. Right? 1, Capricorn, Aquarius, Pisces. Yeah. Was I right about Sag rising? Sag, Capricorn, Aquarius, third house. Yes. Sorry, I'm having to do this on my phone. It's so weird. It's just not 1, 2, 3, 4. It should be 1, 2, 3, 4. There we go. Yes, thank you. Sorry for that, Capricorn risings. No wonder you've got Neptune in the third, which is how you communicate. And I'm having trouble communicating to you right now. Sorry about that. Yeah, actually, decision making, mental processes, communication is a place where it's lack of clarity. I think it's so funny that that was like that for Capricorn risings. I couldn't even like get it out. My brain couldn't even make sense of it. So I feel like I'm tuning into how you guys are feeling right now. I feel like it's a lot of mental overwhelm and mental overload for you. And so I think with Saturn sextile in your second house of finances and values, that is where you look to make sure you're making the right decisions, to make sure you're communicating properly, is focus on your values. On your allergies. No, actually, the second house is definitely your finances and security and what you find comfortable. And you've been doing a lot of work there. So that's what you need to focus on. If you're having trouble making decisions, and I have a feeling the decisions that you need to make are happening in your fourth house of home and family. That's where Jupiter is. Like, for instance, building a house, and you've got all these things to pick out. I actually know a Capricorn rising who is building a house, who is having a lot of mental overwhelm from it. Okay, so that's a perfect example of what's going on for you right now. And if it's not house, it's home, it's roots. It's like there is so much energy, so much focus moving forward there. But it's like, oh, how do I deal with it all? Remember your values. Remember what you find comforting. Remember what you want in the future. What is your goal? That is the main thing to focus on for the full moon in Sag for you. Also, let go a little bit, because the 12th house is about letting go and not trying to kind of tool it to death. So for Capricorn risings, this may be a time to just say, okay, I'm going to trust. All right, Aquarius rising. This full moon is in your 11th house of, I'm sorry, is it? Yeah, it's got to be. Man, I'm experiencing altitude for sure right now. So the 11th house is goals, networking. So there may be a lot of social activity for Aquarius risings, or at least that's what you want to focus on right now. The problem comes in your second house of finances. So it's like, I want to really get into working towards my goals. I want to go after it. There is a lot of optimism towards your goals, but there is a lack of clarity or disillusionment in your finances and your self-worth. And that can cause trouble when you're trying to head towards goals if you don't believe in yourself, right? So Saturn is in your first house, sextile to this full moon, supporting you. Don't forget the goals you have for yourself, how you want to be seen. You want to be seen and respected as a master. That's what's going on for you right now. Just keep that in your gaze, in your focus, even if you're having self-doubt. Jupiter is in your third house of decision-making and communication and short trips and community and siblings. And so there's a lot of focus there, whatever that means for you. But I feel like the work that you're putting in on your identity and who you are and the groups of people that you belong to is where it's at for this full moon. And last but not least, it's the Pisces risings. And this full moon is in your 10th house of career. And I really like that because this is about, I feel like you've been working towards this for a long time. The Neptune in the first is going to cause some doubt with your identity, or maybe not sure how you want to present yourself in this situation. Saturn's in your 12th. Use your intuition. You have a spiritual goal that you are working towards right now. Jupiter is in your second house of finances and values and self-worth, also propping you up. Perhaps some inflammation. Mars is there as well. I've chosen not to talk about that, but I think it's in knowing you're supported. I think you really, Pisces risings are like, I am totally supported, even though I'm not exactly sure how I'm being seen or how I want to be seen right now. I know what I'm going after is spiritually aligned. So that's Pisces risings. And, as an addendum to all of that, I think that this full moon in Sagittarius is doing a lot to wrap up some loose ends from the last eclipse cycle last year. The South Node was in Sagittarius, which is what we're moving away from. And we were moving away from a narrative we always told ourselves. And I think right now we're seeing the truth of what the new narrative is. So if you pay attention to where I said the full moon was, that was the area that we were having South Node eclipses last year. So remember that. Now let's move on to the future. Okay, so where are we at today? Moon in Capricorn. It's going to trine Uranus here very shortly. And that is a brief moment of being able to shift, which, by the way, Uranus is in Taurus. That is rebellion, upheaval in the area of values, economy, supply chain. That's all Uranus and Taurus. Okay. Expect that to get way more active this summer. I'm not even lying. It's going to get active. So this full moon, this moon transit through Capricorn, when it trines Uranus, it's always brief. The moon moves pretty fast, right? So boom, boom, here we go. But I always find that it's a moment where we become aware of something that is changing in us. And that happens later today, June 15th. I'm on Mountain Time right now. So it's tonight. Let's see. Otherwise, the only other thing going into Thursday, June 16th, is that the moon will trine Mars, first of all. That's probably before most of us wake up. So overnight, again, a brief like, aha, this is what I want to do. I'm sorry, not Mars. It's going to trine Venus. My gosh. In fact, the moon is square Mars right now as it trines Uranus. Hold on. Let me backtrack. Tonight, when I said the moon in Capricorn trines Uranus, we have that moment of upheaval and shifting. It also squares Mars. I would put tonight, if you see this before tonight, on the high energy meter, because moon square Mars can be pretty inflammatory and explosive. Mars also has just met up with Chiron, which is kind of a sensitive spot. So be aware that tonight that could come up. And then tomorrow, the moon trines Venus, which is much nicer. That's overnight. So I hope we get a good night's rest out of that at least. And then the moon hits Pluto midday, Thursday, the 16th. This is it's again, any moon transit's brief, right? This is around noon Mountain Time. I think I'm in Mountain Time. I may be still in Central Time, but it's still around midday. And Pluto in Capricorn is us contending with what has authority over us, what we allow to have authority, the rules, right? What holds power. So, I always look for a moon Pluto transit to bring that up for everybody. Again, midday Thursday. Mercury, it should be noted, is now in Gemini, it's still in shadow of retrograde. It's going to be maybe this weekend before it leaves the shadow, but I think we're all happy to have Mercury out of Taurus, off of Algol, which is the demon star. I talked about that in my last video. So Friday, when we wake up, the moon is in Aquarius. And, the thing about that is anytime the moon is in a fixed sign, Aquarius, Leo, Scorpio, Taurus, we're going to have interaction with Uranus. We're going to have interaction with Saturn. And this is going to set off this do we stay or do we go kind of thing. And instead of it being do we stay or do we go, it's do we follow the rules and structure and mastery and do the hard work, or do we do the upheaval? Do we do the rebellion? Do we do the revolution? Okay. So this weekend, the moon will light that stuff up. It squares Uranus first, so we want to break free first of all. And then it will hit, and this is Friday. So I actually, with moon Uranus, again, very brief, but that doesn't mean it won't be very powerful. Midday again. So we're having some midday hits every day. And then Venus also on Friday will sextile. It's coming into a sextile with Neptune. So we may start to get some pretty magical, bringing dreams into reality feelings around this time. That's going to be active all weekend as well. So, that's a kind of a mixed bag. We have the wall of Saturn on Saturday, moon hitting Saturn, which is mastery. Of course, we're restructuring right now with Saturn retrograde, rethinking what goals we have, how we belong in society. But Venus sextile Neptune is like, hey, we can do this. We just need to imagine. And I think this is really more collective. Like we're talking about how do we funnel our money as a society? What does our economy even look like? That's a very Venus sextile Neptune transit. So that's Saturday for sure. And then I will say it's moon Saturn early in the morning. And then Venus sextiles Neptune later in the evening. It hits the degree on Saturday and then into Sunday. Sunday looks pretty nice, honestly. The moon moves into Pisces, and that's very, very exciting. The other thing about Sunday is Mercury is sextile Jupiter. Not exactly, but it's on its way to. It's pretty close on Sunday. So Sunday looks like a really good day with Jupiter sextile Mercury, Venus sextile Neptune, moon in Pisces. Looks like a pretty magical Sunday. I'm looking at it to see if there's any squares that are going to be. Yes, of course there are. Venus squares Saturn. Oh, why do you do this to us, universe? It's like, oh, such magical, mystical vibes. And then there's the Venus square Saturn. So, okay, taking back what I said, Sunday's not going to be all roses. Venus square Saturn is, we really want what we want. Venus and Taurus knows what it likes. It knows how it wants to be comfortable. Saturn and Aquarius is like, I need you to rethink that because the rules are this way. So that could be implicated heavily in collective news. I would watch Sunday for economic news. Other than that, Mercury coming into a sextile with Jupiter is really, our minds will be on point. We'll be seeing the truth. And that's a really good thing Sunday going into Monday. We just have Venus Saturn, which is not exactly, y'all, this Venus Saturn happens at exactly the Venus Neptune. Gosh, what a mixed bag. In one way, we see the possibilities, and another way, we feel like there's so much work to do. So there you have it for the weekend. Okay, so going into Sunday night, moon still in Pisces. Dreams are probably going to be crazy, by the way, Sunday going into Monday. Let's see, when does Venus move off of that? Yeah, so Monday we've got Venus leaving the square to Saturn. Thank goodness, because that could be kind of weird on Sunday, I'm not going to lie. And the Venus Neptune stuff, while it may feel really magical, may have us want to just escape it all because, wow, we don't want to deal with that, right? Something to think about. But Monday, we've got still Mercury sextile Jupiter, really seeing through to the truth, getting the information we need. And then what we have is Venus coming into a trine with Pluto on Monday, going into the evening. Let's see when that's exact. I want to get that for you. I'm going hour by hour here. You guys are getting all of it because I'm thorough, even on vacation. Yeah, so that's going to be more into Tuesday. So June 21st, Tuesday, Venus starts to trine Pluto. It's really overnight. So we'll say Monday night. It's pretty active Monday. And I like this. I'll tell you why. Monday, so let's talk about Monday, the 20th into the 21st. Venus in Taurus is really focused on sensuality, what we enjoy, what we find comfortable, money, value, self-worth, right? We've got a lot of good energy there. Venus gives gifts. The square to Saturn Sunday, over the weekend, if you will, is like holding it back from getting what we find comfortable, from feeling good, because there's so much work to do and so many things to deal with. That's Saturn in Aquarius, so much structure, and we have to pay attention to our goals and how we fit into society. We can't just take, we have to also give. Saturn in Aquarius, Venus in Taurus. But Monday night into Tuesday with Venus trine Pluto is really feeling into our power center and feeling empowered, maybe by our own self-worth, realizing we know what we value. We know what makes us feel comfortable, and we're going to demand it either from those in power or take it. So, I mean, it's a pretty empowering thing on Monday night going into Tuesday. Let's see here. Mercury's out of shadow, by the way, by now. As we go through Tuesday, that of course is the summer solstice, and the sun moves into Cancer. Why is that big news? Okay, so the summer solstice is when the light starts to, that's the longest day, most light. But that also means that's when the light begins to get shorter again. Okay, so the summer solstice has always been a very powerful point, not only in astrology and astronomy. The 0 degrees Cancer point is the Tropic of Cancer, the tilt of the earth. It all matters in astronomy and weather and astrology. 0 degrees Cancer is a big deal. But this year, it's a huge deal because Cancer is emotion. Cancer is self-care. It's enjoying the fruits of your labor, pretty much. I mean, you think about nourishment, nurturing your family. All of the gardens are producing around this time in the Northern Hemisphere, et cetera, et cetera. But it's square Jupiter in Aries. So almost immediately we get this tenseness between self-care, relaxation, emotion, being with our families, being in this mode of enjoying and just taking care of ourselves. And Jupiter in Aries, which is like, let's go, let's do it, let's move, let's go. That's almost immediate. Now, granted, the sun at 0 degrees is pretty far away from square to Jupiter at 7 degrees or 6 degrees at this point, but it's a sign-based square and it's applying, meaning it's moving towards it almost immediately. So that, I want you to note that about this Cancer season, that even though Jupiter in Aries is good for movement, it's also really inflammatory. And so it's important. And I think that's the square to the sun in Cancer, to pay attention to our emotions, to take care, to love, to nurture, to nourish. And that might be hard to reconcile the two, going after our desires, but caring and nourishment and moving through emotion. Okay, let's see here. The moon's in Aries too, as soon as the solstice happens. Like literally, we have that square anyway. So the moon moves into Aries, looks like overnight, the 20th into the 21st. And then the sun moves into Cancer. And then we've got the first quarter square of the moon. Although I think the exact first quarter square happens in Gemini and Pisces. It does. That's at 7:07 p.m. on the 20th. So we have the first quarter square moon, then boom, the 21st, the sun moves into Cancer, moon in Aries, which is going to hit Jupiter and have this square come up almost immediately. So I would put that on a kind of like a high, maybe annoying kind of day. But it is good that the moon Jupiter, that's always a good thing. It's just in direct tension with the sun in Cancer. So yes, we feel like we want to go after it and do all the things, but we also need to take care and nourish and move through emotion. Okay. So the 22nd, let's talk about this. And now I believe the 22nd is on into think the 22nd's on into Wednesday, if I'm not mistaken. I don't have it all. Yes. Okay. So Wednesday, the 22nd. Okay. Wednesday, the 22nd, Moon in Aries with Mars. That's going to be a rough morning. Not going to lie. Could be very motivating. We can't, always just generalize and say Aries is this and it could, but Moon Mars can tend to make people overreact, triggered, maybe angry, frustrated. So just pay attention to that. Important to note. And then I think that's probably the biggest story of Moon and Aries, except for toward the evening on Wednesday, the moon sextiles Saturn. So that might be a nice feeling of being grounded after the moon hitting Mars. Okay. Thursday morning, moon moves into Taurus. Now this is good. Oh gosh, it's not just the moon, y'all, that moves. On oh, that's a big move. Overnight, Wednesday night into Thursday, we've got Venus moving into Gemini. Venus rules Taurus where it's at right now. It's really giving its gifts in Taurus. But in Gemini, becomes real frenetic, real social, real wanting to talk, lots of communication. Mercury's in Gemini. There will be lots of chatter, lots of information flow, and Venus moves into Gemini. Gemini is the trickster sign. Keep that in mind. That's lots more movement coming up for this time period. Okay. Lots more active energy. And then the moon moves into Taurus, which really wants to stay in its kind of stubborn fixedness. Okay. So I think that's funny because we've got on one hand, Venus moving into this very communicative, mutable, changeable sign, and the moon moving into steady Taurus at the same time. This is Thursday, the 23rd. During that time, let's see. I don't think it makes many aspects right off the bat. It does sextile the sun first thing in the morning. So I like that. As far as the self-care goes, this is good. This is going to add to our need to take care of ourselves on Thursday, the 23rd. That's a good morning, I think. As we move along, though, doesn't really make many connections with anything until Friday. So we can call that kind of a quiet, nice day. Let's see. I'm looking at Mars right now, trying to see what it's doing. Yeah. Yeah, I think Thursday, all in all, can be a quiet, nice day, except for the fact that Venus is in Gemini, wanting to be social. You got to balance the two. Do I, take care of myself and rest, or do I do the communication thing? Lots of probably social media stuff going on around the weekend. So Friday the 24th, moon's in Taurus. We'll wake up as it's hitting Uranus. That's a big deal. Again, moon Uranus, awareness, change, shift, unexpected events. Very brief. That's going to be around midday, or actually early afternoon. But the other thing is, it lights up the place where the eclipse was, the solar eclipse. That was April 30th on Friday. So I would watch for those themes around self-worth, around values, finances, what's changing in that area. What are you pursuing in that area? That's all Friday and even into Saturday topic. Okay. So Saturday, the 25th, I think the biggest story is that morning, the moon squares Saturn and sextiles Neptune. This is similar to what I was talking about on, what day was that? With Venus on, okay, Wow, we have similar themes both weekends. So this weekend we have Venus square Saturn sextile Neptune, and then next weekend it'll be the moon there. Next Saturday. Now, of course, that's a lot less, it's got a lot less weight, the moon does, than Venus in regards to transits, because the moon moves so fast, very brief. Venus is also pretty fast, but not nearly as brief as the moon. So next weekend will just be a revisitation of this weekend, okay? Do we let go, escape? Do we structure ourselves? And then the moon trines Pluto. Anytime anything's in Taurus right now, it's going to interact with all of these planets. So keep that in mind. That's kind of an interesting Saturday, the 25th theme. Do we follow the rules? Do we just, lend ourselves to escapism and get away from it all because we don't want to deal with it? That's the nature of it. We want what we want. We don't necessarily want to give to the whole with that Saturn square in Aquarius, but we have to think of our goals. We have to restructure our lives in order to get what we want with the Taurus stuff. Okay, so what we come into on Sunday is Mars getting very close to sextile Saturn. And I think that's going to be really nice. This is Sunday into Monday. Mars is at 23 degrees, 50 minutes Sunday morning, and hits the 24th degree in the afternoon, which will sextile Saturn. So we're going to be reminded of the work we have to do, of the responsibility to the whole, of the restructuring that we're doing. A sextile is opportunistic. So I like this because Mars is pushing forward in Aries towards our goals. We are moving towards our goals. And we're doing so in a structured manner with this sextile to Saturn. So that's really nice. Okay. At this point, we're getting close to the moon's in Gemini, which means we're getting very close to the new moon. And I will be back in town. So I'm going to come back and talk about the new moon in Cancer, which will be squared Jupiter, in front of my normal background with all of my normal tools, and maybe more put together around that time. We'll see. Anyway, I think overall this week, it seems like this weekend can be a little squirrely with Venus square Saturn. I'm going to say that. And we're talking about the 18th, 19th. There is a little magic in there, but also a little work. And then what we move into is the Cancer square Aries energy, which can be like, which do we choose? Do we choose what we want, our desires? Do we choose self-care? And in the same way, that is going to exacerbate even these Saturn issues, I think, because how do we structure our lives and also push forward and also remember the greater good, the Aquarius humanitarian objectives, the society as a whole? It's a very weird economic time. It's a very weird weather time. So although I don't see it being like a super quiet next couple of weeks, I don't necessarily think there's too much discomfort. Highest points of discomfort seem to be the solstice ingress with the square of Jupiter to Aries, and then also this weekend with Venus square Saturn. All right, you guys, I'll be back. Feel free to book me at ecstaticastrology.com and look out for my article. I wrote a transit article for career astrologer, which you can get on the OPA, Organization for Professional Astrology website. And that will be coming out for the solstice edition. And I wrote about the summer ahead of time, so you don't have to listen to my rambling. Either way, I appreciate you watching, and I hope that you have a wonderful weekend. And I hope that me and my family continue to have a safe trip home so that I can get back to my routine talking to y'all. And I'll see you on the flip side. Bye.